G'day guys, back with the Outer Circle. In this episode of getting started in the Horus Heresy, we've finally reached the Imperial Fists. The Imperial Fists are the most overpowered / broken legion in the game. Just. The Iron Warriors are right up alongside them. Now, that's a pretty big call to make, but I'm going to go into it, and essentially it boils down to being a jack of all trades and excelling in multiple areas. People can play it down, they can make up excuses and say, well, you know, I played against them and I had no problem beating them, yada yada. There will always be exceptions to the rule, but for my opinion and my part, this is how I review them. So their basic trait is Discipline and Resolve, which is they gain a +1 to hit with all auto and bolt weapons on any shooting attack. That will affect snap shooting, that will affect regular shooting, that will affect intercepting, that will affect Overwatch reactions. It is a huge bonus. And the reason it's a huge bonus is many weapons are situational. Take Salamanders. Your Flamers are ever so slightly better because they have a better wall of death and a higher strength. Salamanders are good in that regard. Then you have Death Guard. Oh, you've got Toxin Flamers. Well, your Flamers are slightly better as well. They're shredding. But when you get to the Imperial Fists, you have shotguns, rotor cannons, autocannons, Reaper autocannons, Curious assault cannons, Gravis autocannon, Gravis autocannon batteries, Predator cannons, Punisher rotary cannons, Sky Reaper batteries, Anvilus autocannon batteries, Anvilus snub autocannon batteries, Kratos battle cannons with their AP and flashburn shells. You also have the Bolt Pistol, Bolter, Combi Bolter, Kraken Bolter with Tempest Scorpius rounds. And you've got Nemesis Bolter, Heavy Bolter, Gravis Bolt Cannon, Gravis Heavy Bolt Battery, and Avenger Bolt Cannon. As well as combi weapons that feature bolt guns as a part of the armament. So it is a huge range of weapons. It will also affect things like the Iliastus Pattern Assault Cannon, which is one of their special weapons. Now, the reason this is so powerful is when other legions are out there with identical war gear in a one-on-one situation, you are always going to be better. You're going to be better snap shooting. You are going to be better. So, for example, you fall back. You have to snap shoot because you're falling back and you've rallied. You're going to do it better than other legions. Your vehicles, Predator battle tanks, are going to be better than other Predator battle tanks. Because instead of 30% of your shots missing, only about 15% of your shots are going to miss. That's very important because the hardest part in this game is often hitting things, especially when it comes to high strength weapons. Anyway, the Imperial Fist Advanced Reaction is an interesting one. It's called the Best Defense, and the way it works is when an enemy unit moves within 10 inches of you, you can attempt to charge them in their movement phase. You roll a d6, you add it to your lowest initiative in the unit, generally that will be 4. So therefore you want to try and aim for 7 to 8 inches distance when you call this reaction. And of course, people who aren't playing Imperial Fists try to stay outside of 7 to 8 inches. You want to be at least 9 inches away and go for a longer charge distance. Because what will happen is the Imperial Fists will charge you in your movement phase. You don't get to overwatch them, you don't get to make a movement reaction to get away from them. There is nothing you can do about it. If they successfully roll this off, they will charge you. And if they do charge you, they get 100% of their bonuses. That's massive. Alright, Warlord traits. All 3 Warlord traits are solid. So the first one is the Solar Marshal. It's a Loyalist-only Warlord trait. And the Warlord and the unit that he joins get +1 to their weapon skill characteristic when in combat with 1 or more enemy units that have the Traitor Allegiance. The Warlord and his unit also get to make 1 additional reaction per turn. Doesn't matter what reaction phase you choose to use it in, and it only affects him and his unit. Very strong trait. Especially if you have him in a weapon skill 5 unit. You're going up to weapon skill 7 on the Warlord and weapon skill 6 on the weapon skill 5 unit that he's joined. That's going to make them very hard to hit for enemy Terminators who normally would be weapon skill 5 themselves and very good at hitting things. immediately you've overcome a huge part of the close combat problem, which is the enemy hitting you as easily as you hit them. Turning them from hitting you on 3s or 4s into hitting you on 5s is huge. Warden of Inwin. When within 6 inches of an objective or within their own deployment zone, a warlord with this trait and all models in his unit, they automatically pass all morale or pinning checks they're called upon to make, and they get an additional reaction in the assault phase. So that's the entire of your deployment zone, so 1/4 of the table, plus around an objective. That's pretty good in a game that's full of fear and pinning and morale checks. The last one of these traits is the Architect of Devastation. The warlord and all models in the unit he joins may reroll failed to hits of a 1 as long as they're inside cover or inside a fortification. Now, it has to be area terrain cover that they're in. We'll make the note of that. And also they get a free shooting reaction. So probably the worst of these options, but still really good. Especially if your warlord happens to be inside a bunker, for example, with a las cannon heavy support team, and you're rerolling all your 1s to hit. A boo-hoo-hoo how hard a time it is to be an Imperial Fist. Now we get to the Rites of War, and we're going to start with, for some reason this legion is special snowflakes, and they get 3, so we're going to start with the middle one, because the last 2 Rites of War I kind of want to do simultaneously, because they're almost identical. Anyway, first one is the Hammer 4 Strike Force. Phalanx Warders may be taken as troops, but they do not gain the line subtype, which makes it of questionable value. All models in a unit composed entirely of models with the infantry type in this detachment may also take Deep Strike for 30 points per unit. Again, questionable value because interception is so strong in this edition and very commonplace thanks to augury scanners being just littering the battlefields now. All models in the unit composed entirely of models with the infantry unit type upgraded to have Deep Strike get 5+ Shrouded. But this is the thing, it says upgraded because of this rule. That means things like Terminators, for example, who may have it through other means, or characters who have it through other means, or drop pods, or jump troops deep striking in, they do not get the Shrouded benefit because they're not buying that 30-point upgrade. Poorly written rule in that regard, I think. Limitations. Models of the vehicle unit type taken in the detachment must begin in reserves and cannot be a part of a assault onto the board, such as Deep Strike Assault, Subterranean Assault, Outflanking Assault. And they may not take fortifications. Oh no! Anyway, the other 2 Rites of War are the Stone Gauntlet and Templar Assault, and I wanted to do them sort of at the same time, but I'll cover them off one at a time. But all you need to know is it's the same Rite of War. They just basically changed the units around. So, for example, in the Stone Gauntlet, Phalanx Warders become troops. In Templar Assault, Templar Brethren become troops. In both Rites of War, the units that become troops gain line, and they gain Heart of the Legion. So, feel no pain, that stacks when within 6 inches of an objective, with more than half their models, and Stubborn. On top of that, when you're using these detachments, your limitations are very similar. You must take the special unit that became a troop as a compulsory troops choice, such as Phalanx Warders or Templar Brethren. You must also... you cannot have more elites or fast attack than you have troops. So they're covering off the same things over and over and over, these 2 Rites of War. It's very unimaginative. So it makes you wonder why they have 3 Rites of War here when they made the same Rite of War essentially twice. Anyway, to focus on the Stone Gauntlet now. When models in that detachment are in coherency with their boarding shields, they get to reroll failed invul saves against shooting attacks. But they cannot be claimed if they made a run, or they did a charge or sweeping advance, because they've broken the shield wall. Any model in the detachment which is an Imperial Fist with a boarding shield and in unit coherency, when they charge, they get Hammer of Wrath 1. And of course the limitations I already spoke about. In the Templar Assault, on the other hand, when they participate in disembarking from a vehicle, can't be an emergency disembark, has to be a regular disembark. They get Rage 2 for the duration of that game turn. Okay. Limitations. A detachment using this Rite of War must select the Loyalist Allegiance, so it can't be a traitor Rite of War. Now, what do I think about them? I think they're both quite strong Rites of War, with the Stone Gauntlet probably being the stronger of the two. It hasn't got the +1 toughness of the previous edition's Stone Gauntlet, but these are heavy troops, so rerolling failed armor saves against blasts and templates, combining that with the fact that they'll be rerolling invulnerable saves, plus other stuff we'll go into later, makes them an incredibly survivable Rite of War. And this is what makes Imperial Fist strong in general. They've got an excellent shooting game, thanks to 2/3 of the ranged weapons in the game being given +1 to hit because of their stupid Legion trait. On top of this, they have troops that are as hard as nails. Because normally you would say, hey, if I can close the distance across the board, I'm going to lose a lot of guys to their superior shooting, but when I get there, they're screwed. Not against Imperial Fist. They are just rocks. So let's go into the Legion Special War Gear. Starting with the Vigil Pattern Storm Shield. So it's a Storm Shield, and obviously costs a lot of points for characters, costs less points for a Tartarus Command Squad. It costs less points when you go from a character down to a Tartarus Command Squad or Tartarus Terminus Squad, and then costs even less points again if it's on Cataphracti, and what it does, it gives you a flat 3-up invulnerable save. So you get almost all of the benefits of Cataphracti on Tartarus, except for the heavy special rule. Yeah, it's strong. Again, it's part of that Imperial Fists are just hard to break through because 3+ invulnerable saves. The only other Legion who has them in any kind of numbers in this edition is the Salamanders. And on Salamanders, it's a lot harder to get a hold of. Basically being limited to Vidrakes, some Terminator types. Yeah. They can also get Teleport Strike, which is an upgrade, which again, in the form of Terminator squads, 25 points. On independent characters, 20 points. They get Deep Strike. Probably of questionable value. Could be handy for some deployment shenanigans in some lists. But something many Legions don't get, the ability to just give units Deep Strike. The Imperial Fists here are demonstrating mobility that Legions like the Raven Guard don't have. They don't have just, oh, you may take Deep Strike on your Terminators. No, Raven Guard aren't known for that. If you detect a slight air of salt in the room, this is why. This Legion has it all, and that's why they're the #1 pick. Soulright Power Gauntlet. The only close combat weapon that's unique to the Imperial Fists, and it's a Strength 10 Power Fist at AP1. And funny enough, it can actually be paired with a regular close combat weapon or bolt pistol for +1 attack, because it's not a specialist weapon. Interesting. Moving to ranged war gear, they have the Iliastus Assault Cannon. So just like the Blood Angels, but the difference between these guys and the Blood Angels is that +1 to hit with the Iliastus. +1 to hit is huge, cannot be overstated. Most units that are taking this, it can be on Dreadnoughts, it can be on your Predator battle tanks. You can have Predator battle tanks with 1 on the Pintle and 2 sponsons and the Predator autocannon. Those Predators are still pretty cheap, even upgraded at 20 points per tank for each of those weapons, so 60 points a tank for 3 of them. But if you do it, oh, Jesus, it's strong. And you're going to be looking at tanks. In fact, it's not even going to be 60 points. It's going to be a 10-point upgrade on any heavy flamer for a lot of stuff, and it's going to be 20 points on those sponsons. So it's just a rough thing. It's an assault weapon as well, so units can move and fire it at full ballistic skill, even infantry units, when other legions just don't have that kind of firepower. Just that much rending firepower. And hitting on 2s. So hitting on 2s, winning on 2s with most of your shooting. The only number you have to be afraid of on a dice as an Imperial Fist player is a 1. It's just strong. It's so strong. They've got excellent defensive capability with storm shields. They have excellent offensive capability thanks to hitting things on twos with assault cannons and all the other bolt and auto weapons. Nemesis bolters especially, we sort of spoke about in live streams, where the Nemesis bolt gun is so brokenly strong, making that thing hit constantly on twos is just brutally good. The Iliastus assault cannon's main drawback is in Overwatch, which is not a huge deal. You don't want to fire it in Overwatch because it gets a hot weapon, so you will risk losing a lot of models firing it. So probably don't do it, guys. Anyway, moving on from the war gear, we get to their special console, because of course they have 3 rights of war more than anyone else. They have an excellent, no brain power required, smooth brain move Legion trait. They also get their own console, which many other Legions with far more interesting characters do not get. And in this case, it's the Castellan, 20-point upgrade to a Legion Centurion. You basically lose most of the Centurion's weapon upgrades, so you're not going to give him things like an attack bike or a jump pack. You're not going to give him a Soulright Power Gauntlet or anything like that. But what he gets is heavy weapons. He can take a Mastercraft Heavy Bolter for free, Mastercraft Autocannon for 5 points, or an Iliastus Assault Cannon for 10 points, but it's not Mastercrafted. If you take this guy, he gets to make an additional shooting attack with it. So 3-shot Autocannon, 6-shot Heavy Bolter, 5-shot Iliastus Assault Cannon. But that's not why you take him. You take him because, for some reason, he gives any and all Legion Heavy Support Squads in the same detachment as him line. He's also heavy. So, that's something. And I also see no restrictions in here about him being a non-compulsory HQ choice. So in theory, you could take an allied detachment of Imperial Fists, led by this guy, and take a Legion Heavy Support Squad, and that Heavy Support Squad in the allied detachment will be a scoring Heavy Support Squad. Just, yeah. Have your cake and eat it too if you play Imperial Fists. So let's move along from there, and let's go into the Legion Special Units, because we've got 2 of them to get through here. Yes, I'm aware there's an additional unit in the Legion PDFs, but we're not going to focus on those today. The Huskarls, that is. We're going straight to in the book. What can people buy from the shop? And Templar Brethren, 150 points, 25 points per additional model. You're getting Weapon Skill 5, 2 Wound, Artificer Armoured, basically Legion veterans. They have Furious Charge 1, they've got the Crusader Special Rule, they have Leadership 8 base, 9 on the Squad Leader called a Champion. They can all take Melter Bombs for 25 points for the unit, 5 additional guys may be taken in the unit. They can all take Combat Shields for just 2 points a model. Do it, it will not hurt you to do it. If you have 10 of them in the squad, that's only 20 points. That's cheap. It's cheaper than the Melter Bombs to give them all a 6-up, 5-up invul save. And they'll still get all their bonus attacks in close combat. You can also take a Thunderhammer on the Squad Champion or a Soulright Gauntlet for only 10 points. Just do it. You can upgrade to Mastercrafted. That is probably an excessive use of your points. But this unit is very, very choppy. I wouldn't go throwing them into Terminators though, but against things like Power Armor. This is a unit designed to kill things like Night Lord's Terror Squads. Okay, really pick on Power Armor that's Weapon Skill 4 and hold their own against units that are Weapon Skill 5. Not a bad choice, just a good unit, but unless you're running the Rite of War, I don't think they're really going to excel for you, and the Rite of War is still going to be very situational what you get out of them, because they just don't have the killing power to fight things that have an armor save as good as theirs, which is something that's not true for many other elite special units. Lastly, the Phalanx Water Squad. 225 points, you can get an additional model for 20 points each. So 5 points a model more than Legion Breaches. But what do you get for 5 points? You get a Power Axe on every single model. You also get the Shield Wall and Lockstep special rules and an additional point of Leadership on the basic guys and on the Sergeant. So Leadership 9 unit. Now, unlike, say, regular breaches, who are basically stuck with bolt guns, these guys, on the other hand, can take a Thunder Hammer on 1 in every 5, as well as on the Sergeant, who can also take a Soulright Power Gauntlet. But let's be honest, you're taking Thunder Hammers. For 255 points, you can have 10 models with 3 Thunder Hammers. Yeah, that's fair. Whole squad can take multi-bombs, of course. They come with breaching charges as standard. Yes, you can also take, in addition to other options, if you did want to take the Thunder Hammers on them, you could take Melter Guns, for instance, Plasma Guns, Flamers, Combi Weapons. I still think the Thunder Hammer is by far the better option. And the Lockstep special rule, so when they're charged by an enemy unit, as long as 3 of the models in Coherency are not charged by the enemy, then your whole unit gains +1 weapon skill, so goes to weapon skill 5 on the turn you're charged. Because, yeah, a defensive squad should be very good in close combat like that. All you have to do is make sure your squad sort of is deployed in a way where the enemy can't completely surround them and touch every single model. And you just get +1 weapon skill, because of course. And the shield wall. Models in this unit with boarding shields, which are in base contact with 2 other models with boarding shields that are not falling back or pinned, add +1 to their invul saves. Friendly models with the independent character special rule that have joined this unit also benefit from this. So where you've got units like Crimson Paladins that their shields do not confer upon the character, yeah, these guys, it does. Just, chef's kiss, have your cake, eat it too, Imperial Fist players. And people ask why I think these are broken. If you have some of the best shooting in the game, as well as some of the best defensive units in the game, you cannot overcome the defensive units to get to the soft and squishy shooting stuff. It's that simple. Solid as a rock. The only Legion rocking massed 3+ invulnerable saves, and even on these Phalanx Warders, in the Rite of War, you're talking a unit which has 4+ re-rollable invul saves, the regular armor saves also being re-rolled, and because they would have the Heart of the Legion special rule, I believe it's called, when they're within 6 inches of objectives, they would also get Feel No Pain 5+, 6+, which can stack with an Apothecary to take it down to a 4+ Feel No Pain. You tell me that for 225 points, that is not one of the most hardcore defensive choices in the Horus Heresy. Yeah, Imperial Fists are broken as shit. It's not often I swear in the Getting Started Horus Heresy videos. I generally try to keep a positive tone, inform you of the rules of a Legion, but in this instance, what is the drawbacks to this Legion? I'm not seeing them. Because anything you could call a drawback to these guys is a legitimate drawback that another Legion has. And they are still better than the other Legions in nearly every single way. The only Legion who comes close to the Imperial Fists on the power spectrum, and it is very close, is the Iron Warriors. And then it's a big step down from there till you get to the Emperor's Children, Night Lords, and Space Wolves. Yeah, I don't like how they've been written. Just too many good things. They really are the poster child of the Horus Heresy, and it's a shame to see, because you shouldn't be seeing Legions that, with the Raven Guard, for example, you've got to be bang on precise. Same with the Alpha Legion, with your tactical deployment of your units if you want to win games, because the enemy has better units than you. So you've got to use the gimmicks of your Legion to the utmost, and in cases like the Raven Guard, you're relying on something like Infiltrate to get your bonuses. Then you've got someone like the Thousand Suns. The Thousand Suns, they need to roll to see if they actually get to pull off their Legion trait Psychic Power in that turn. And if they lose their Squad Sergeant, they just lose that ability to take the power. Ever. So they lose functionally, they lose the Legiones Astartes rule. Imperial Fist, though, it's just this dumb, drooling man-child across the table in his fedora, just going, I hit everything on 2s. Just rolling dice. Like, no thought required. Put a line of tanks down, put a line of Phalanx Warders in front of your tanks, take the Rite of War, take your Castellan Console that makes all of your heavy weapons line so you can have 9 scoring when most people are struggling to get 3 scoring units, and fucking profit. What a great writing job. I do not like the Imperial Fists. That's it. That's all I got. End of the episode. Next time out, we're looking at Space Wolves, who I also don't like. See you then.